Okay, this is Paul Crutcher, and this is my final presentation discussion for Education 620. It is my learning theory schema, which I'm calling Emotions and Memory, New Possibilities in Learning Through Professional Emotional Investment. The shape that I chose for my schema comes from Norse mythology. It's called the Valnut, if I'm pronouncing it right. I think I am. I chose this symbol because of the three interlocking triangles that are represented here. This symbol dates back to the Viking Age. You can find it on sunken ships and gravestones. As much as I could figure by research, the symbol was an indication of life to death and then sometimes back to life, which was associated with Norse mythology. For our purposes, the two top triangles represent both memory and emotion. And the bottom triangle and the three triangles together indicate the possibilities in learning through emotional investment. My theory dates back to the 1890s when a psychologist by the name of F.W. Colgrove did a study with subjects who were trying to remember where they were when they heard that Lincoln had been assassinated. This term would appear in the 1970s, flashbulb memory, and that was done in a study on the memories associated with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, with Martin Luther King, and with Malcolm X. The idea of a flashbulb memory is that an event, an emotional event, will trigger a memory that is very easy to recollect. For me, I have certain memories from my childhood that are crystal clear that I remember. A funeral that I went to when I was young. I remember working in my high school office for Mrs. Trinkle, that was her last name, and a TV was on in the office area because Krista McAuliffe, a teacher, was going up on the Space Shuttle Challenger, and I can remember watching the launch and then seeing the Challenger explode. And I have a vivid memory of that room, of the office area, what the carpet looked like, what the cabinet, counter, desk, all that area looks like. For a lot of people, a flashbulb memory is associated with 9/11. People remember exactly where they were when they heard that the first tower had been struck. And certainly people remember where they were if they had gotten to a TV set to watch the second plane hit. In a study done by NYU, I believe it's by NYU, one of the researchers said that the closer people were to the actual towers, the more vivid their memories were. Flashbulb memories aren't always accurate. Some things that we think we remember after years of time passing can fade out or not be as accurate based on the studies that I've read. For myself and for a lot of people, it's not just tragedy. It's not just funerals or sickness or these assassinations or 9/11. But it could be a first phone call to a significant other, a first Valentine's Day. For me, I remember the first date with my wife pretty vividly. I certainly remember my wedding day. I remember trying to get home to see my dad before he passed away, what that trip was like, and where I was in Tennessee when my brother called and said it was too late to get there. That is an emotional memory. And these emotions, there's a little thing in your brain called the amygdala. It's about the shape of an almond, and it's a part of your brain that's responsible for emotion and memory. So emotions produce memory, we know that. Though they're not always 100% accurate, the human mind is capable of remembering vivid details about specific events. It was interesting as I researched this to see that the amygdala is part of why soldiers are dealing with PTSD. Such violent images and things that they've seen are flashbulbed into their brains, and it's hard to get rid of those memories. So my theory, my schema, deals with emotions, which can increase memory. Many people have vivid memories associated with childhood education, with teachers, My wife and I had a conversation over lunch today. I said, take me through each class. What do you remember? She remembered some things from kindergarten. She remembered first grade. Second grade, she had no recollection of whatsoever, but she clearly remembered her third grade teacher. So it's interesting to me to find, and I had the same way. I have vivid memories of third grade. I remember my teacher. I remember my classmates. I remember moving to a new school. Fourth grade, not much as far as a memory there. But I didn't really have an emotional connection with my fourth grade teacher, Mr. Kirby. He had some trouble after I left. Fifth grade and sixth grade, though, with Mrs. Lawyer, she was like a nurturing mother to our entire class. She moved up with us and took the sixth grade position, so I had her for 2 years. So I have vivid memories associated with Mrs. Lawyer, who would give a pack of juicy fruit if you did well. If I see a pack of juicy fruit, it takes me back to her classroom. I believe that teachers have the ability to connect with students, certainly in varying degrees of emotional levels, which I believe could lead to a better overall learning experience for both the teacher and the student. My scheme is rooted in a humanistic psychological approach to education, which was co-founded by Carl Rogers, scholar, and Abraham Maslow. Maslow interested in human potential and the way that individuals fulfill that potential. Self-actualization was the need placed at the top of his famous hierarchy. And I believe as educators, this principle of an emotional connection with our students will help teachers become the best possible versions of ourselves, which is what Maslow was striving for. But based on these principles, I believe forming this emotional bond will help our students become the best version of themselves that they can be. And that's really what we all want. I spoke with Dr. Josie Ryan. She spent the last 2 years here at Lander University meeting with her mathematics classes one evening a week in the dining hall. The students are allowed to come and eat and ask her questions or just hang out. They talk about things that interest them. They can go over problems from class. Dr. Ryan told me that those students who have benefited by her personal investment, and it is an emotional investment of her time, of the effort to get to the dining hall during a weeknight and to listen to students, when maybe you've listened to students all day long. But she said those students perform better than other students in her class. She also said these are the students that would care more anyway. So I don't have scientific data for this, but the principle, I believe, still applies. My schema would provide a means for instructors or for faculty members to begin the process of professional emotional investment into the students that are enrolled in a specific class. I've used this principle with some of our incoming Mass Comm majors here at Lander. I bring them into my office during an open house or during their expos during the summer, and I take about 15 minutes with each student, and I make notes, and I ask them a series of questions. I would love to see faculty members who would initiate an early semester during the first week or two of classes, individual meeting with each of the students in their class in their office. A brief interview could include questions designed to open a dialogue. That's really what I think this should be around and surround. Where are you from? What was life like for you in high school? How did you wind up choosing Lander as your school? What are your future plans? I always ask, if money's no object, what career do you have? What are you doing and why? What are your expectations or your fears as you begin this class? And what would you like to ask me in regards to the class or the syllabus? I think sometimes I put a question on Blackboard and that makes sure I'm covered, but maybe we need to get to know them a little bit better, and perhaps this could be measured. I know the faculty would probably hate if this was mandated, that they had to actually get to know each of the students in the beginning of the semester. And I understand if you're teaching 4 or 5 or 6 classes, whatever you're teaching, it could be cumbersome. So maybe that part is not realistic, but maybe it is. Maybe it would change things. The students would certainly know. I would think as you stand up before a class, if you could look around the room and you knew not just the name, and sometimes we don't even know the name early on, but if you knew a little bit about each student and they knew that you knew that, and they knew that you cared, maybe they'd listen a little closer, and maybe they'd pay a little bit more attention. And maybe they'd try a little harder or dig a little deeper and not just phone it in. I think we all know educators maybe who don't care or who are maybe just drawing a check. And this would, I don't know what word I want to use there, but maybe it would help people to care a little bit more about students. Because I do care about students. And I do believe the best in all of them, even the ones that sometimes are difficult. But I think that's our job as educators, is to inspire them and to really get to know them and to push them to be the very best that they are. I believe our students can compete with anybody. I really do. I've seen students go on in our program who are successful. I've got one young lady who just took a job in the number 3 market in the country in Chicago, and I was able to talk to her and say, you know what, you've got this. You can do it. You can take over the world if you want to. And I believe that about all of our students. So that's my schema, and I thank you for listening.